Hello and welcome to Catholic News Roundup. I'm Christine Niles. Here are this week's top stories. Christians in Kansas are rallying against a black mass. Satanists have been granted permission to offer their ritual on March 28th, advertising their event on Facebook. Quote, "Join us at the Topeka Capitol building in Kansas as we dedicate the grounds in our legislature to the glory of Satan. God will fall, and Kansas will be embraced by the black flame of Lucifer." A petition to block the satanic liturgy has been signed by approximately 25,000 people. The group Tradition, Family, and Property is organizing a rally at the Capitol, while the Kansas bishops said, quote, "Spiritual and legal responses are being explored." President Trump issued a very Catholic Ash Wednesday message. At the start of Lent, he wrote, "Today, followers of Christ wear crosses of ash on their foreheads, a sacred reminder of our mortality and our enduring need for Christ's infinite mercy and redeeming love. As we solemnly contemplate Jesus Christ's suffering and death on the cross this Lent, let us prepare our souls for the coming glory of the Easter miracle." Trump made reference to God at his first address to Congress on Tuesday.
I believe that my life was saved that day in Butler for a very good reason. I was saved by God to make America great again. I believe that.
This follows Vice President J.D. Vance's recent talk about his faith at the National Catholic Prayer Breakfast.
I think this is one of the geniuses of our faith, is that it teaches us through repetition in some ways, and it forms us through a process, of course, that is, I think, at the heart of the mystery of faith, that somehow by practicing the sacraments, even imperfectly, as I certainly do, God transforms us. And while I am as imperfect a Christian as any person in this room, I really do feel that God is transforming me every single day. And that's one of the great blessings of our faith and one of the great blessings of following the sacraments.
And speaking of Ash Wednesday, the body of a Nigerian priest was found that day. Father Sylvester Okechukwu of the Diocese of Kafanchan was kidnapped from his rectory the night of March 4th, tortured and killed, likely by Muslim Fulani herdsmen. Fellow priest Williams Abba commented, "What a day and manner to die." He had his ashes ready and was going to mark the foreheads of parishioners to remind them that they are dust, and to dust they will return. This morning his life was cut short, and he has become dust before us. He went on to say the violent nature of his death was akin to that suffered by Christ. Dozens of priests and nuns have been kidnapped and some of them murdered by Islamic radicals in Nigeria over the past several years. And turning to Ukraine and Russia, peace remains tenuous. More than a week after his disastrous Oval Office meeting, Ukraine's president is sending mixed signals. Steve Witkoff, ambassador to Ukraine and Russia, is expressing hope they'll reach a peace deal.
President Zelensky has demonstrated that he's intent on that good faith path back. He's apologized. He said he's grateful. He said that he wants to work towards peace. By the way, that's ultimately the goal here. President Trump is an outcome-oriented man. He wants a good outcome, and a good outcome is peace, no more death.
Witkoff and other U.S. officials will be meeting Vladimir Zelensky in Saudi Arabia this week to discuss a path to peace, and they hope to sign the minerals deal. U.S. Special Envoy Keith Kellig is suggesting a reset with Russia.
The continued isolation and lack of engagement with the Russians as the war in Ukraine continued is no longer a viable or a sustainable strategy, and is certainly not a responsible approach diplomatically for the United States to continue. These reasons, the human cost of this war, the need to reset relations with Russia to secure Americans' vital national interest, and ultimately to stop U.S. entanglement in an endless proxy war, are the driving reasons why President Trump's approach and the framing of this war is distinct from the broader conventional approach that we see publicly to the war.
After Russian missile strikes on Ukraine Thursday night, Trump threatened further sanctions and then clarified why he won't be sending more arms to Ukraine.
Why not provide Ukraine with air defenses? And what happens, Mr. President, when Ukraine runs out of the Patriot missile batteries?
Good question, because I have to know that they want to settle. I don't know that they want to settle. If they don't want to settle, we're out of there, because we want them to settle. And I'm doing it to stop death, more important than anything else.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has clarified that while the U.S. has stopped sharing intelligence that would allow Ukraine to strike deep inside Russia, the U.S. is still sharing defensive intelligence to alert Ukraine to Russian attacks. Meanwhile, 10,000 Ukrainian troops are surrounded in Russia's Kursk region, with Russian troops about to take back its land. Footage shows after the snow has melted hundreds of Ukrainian corpses. And in Syria, torture and killing of Christians by the Muslim Brotherhood. Gruesome footage from Syria, which we are not showing, reveals Islamists slaughtering Christians and other religious minorities as sectarian violence erupted this week in the Latakia and Tartus regions. This comes months after the Biden administration supported the Islamist overthrow of Bashar al-Assad in favor of the current ruler, Ahmad al-Shara, promising a golden age for Syria. At her confirmation hearing, Tulsi Gabbard predicted this.
I shed no tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
It shouldn't
is
be.
certainly
And
not in our interests.
And in some good news, a mass graves hoax is coming to an end in Canada. After 3 years and more than $200 million spent, the Canadian government hasn't found a single body, in spite of claims that Native American children were buried in mass graves across Catholic residential schools. Hysteria first erupted in 2015 after accusations that hundreds of children were buried at the Kamloops Residential School in British Columbia. The allegations led to vandalism and arson of 120 Catholic churches across Canada. And turning to Ireland, another mass graves hoax exposed. Outrage broke out also in 2015 there, after it was discovered nearly 800 babies were buried in unmarked graves at a Catholic home for unwed mothers in Tuam, Galway. Critics falsely claimed nuns had killed the babies and stuffed them in a septic tank. But each baby's death has been medically certified, confirming none of them were killed, instead dying either from illness or natural causes. Even so, the falsehoods persist. That is this week's Catholic News Roundup. Please visit stellamaris.media and subscribe for the latest news and updates. And please help me to grow this channel by liking and sharing this content. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to pray for peace. And may God bless your week. I'm Christine Niles.